of Zion.
Can a single document ignite global hatred? The Protocols of the Elders of Zion did just that, spreading false conspiracy theories for over a century.
The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a big deal, having an enormous impact upon the world since its publication in 1903. The Protocols refer to 24 uncovered documents detailing the operations and plans of the Jewish world power.
This book is called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, or how the rational world knows it, the most famous and damaging literature forgery that has been created.
The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is the most notorious example of anti-Semitic propaganda in modern history. The Protocols is a conspiracy theory that has been discredited repeatedly, but continues to circulate in the garb of truth.
So I think this is an incredibly valuable document. I think reading into this gives you a lot of insight.
Imagine for a second that someone forged a document claiming that a certain family in your town was secretly poisoning the water, they were controlling the local businesses, they were manipulating the schools, and basically destroying the entire community from within. So if you lost your job, it's their fault. If crime went up, it's their fault. Your kids are confused, it's their fault. If the economy is bad, well, it's their fault. They caused it. It's all part of their plan, okay? But remember, it's a forged document saying these things, okay? But people believed it because it gave them a single villain for every problem that they were already angry about. If you destroy this family, if you take out that family, all of those problems will go away. So soon what happens is the neighbors stopped seeing that family as people. They became the problem. Their kids were imprisoned. Their home was vandalized. The family members were even murdered. But this is not a bad thing. They're the bad guys. People justified it because this family is not innocent. They were not attacking innocent people. They're exposing evil. They're bringing them to justice for all the bad things that they did in the town. But the truth is that that family was innocent the whole time, okay? Now imagine that this poor family was saved from that hell, and the people responsible for the forgery were brought to justice. And that forgery was brought forward and saying, hey, this is propaganda, lying to you guys to hate this family. And it was proved over and over and over again. So that would be case closed, right? So all was set right. The family was exonerated. The bad guys spreading the lies were exposed, okay? Now imagine years later, the family's moved on. They're past the terrible nightmare. The forged document has been proven false again and again and again. And people started sharing it online again as if it were forbidden knowledge about this family. And they were trying to keep this from you. This is kept from you. So you don't know the truth about this family and what they're capable of. This is my attempt to try to explain in the simplest way how to introduce one of the most evil documents ever known to mankind, which has been debunked an embarrassing number of times, called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And I'm not kidding that it's been debunked almost every single generation. Historians have even given it a name called the lie that won't die. Here's the thing. Honestly, guys, I would like to think that this video that I'm making right now is a nothing burger, that it's going to be irrelevant even as I put it out. That even in a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, that nobody's going to care about this video. I really, really hope that's the case. So this is me getting ahead of the game. It's a little risky to do that. I just don't care. I'd rather look stupid. But I think the reason why I finally sat down to just kind of make a video about this is, unfortunately, I have seen this come up. I think I have to face the idea that not only are there going to be people who watch this video who believe the protocols, but there are going to be people who fall for the protocols propaganda, even if they've never even heard of it before. I also think that this document will be brought up in more and more popular spaces to push the ideas within them. It's already happening now. I heard of the teachings within the protocols on popular channels before I knew it was in the protocols. I know I take a risk of name dropping right now. I just don't care. But I was particularly grieved to see the protocols brought up recently on Joel Webbin's channel, and not in a negative light.
Yeah, 24 protocols in total. The whole thing is like this, but still you can see in this first protocol the underlying philosophy, the anti-human agenda, the secretive machinations going on behind the scenes in preparation of a day in which the power that they wield around the world as a wily snake encircling us all would one day be so great that they could unveil themselves as the masters of the world and even those who oppose and despise them would be incapable of doing anything about it. So I think this is an incredibly valuable document. I think reading into this gives you a lot of insight. Even if the people don't know that this is what they're following, it is in fact what they're following. And this in no way is to blame all Jewish people around the world as if they're read into this and secret agents of this faction, but I think a lot of them are unwillingly following the head of the snake. At the end of the day, they'll be destroyed just like everybody else.
I'm not sure what shocked me more, the video or the comments. I literally cannot believe that this is happening today, guys. Like, seriously. We have people in Christian circles and conservative commentators who are drinking deeply from the well of the conspiracy worldview. And at the bottom of that well, I'm learning more and more that it's the protocols of the Elders of Zion at the end of that well. So, okay, what am I even talking about here? Some of you guys are like, what are you even talking about, Melissa? You're getting ahead of yourself. I know. You know what channel you're at. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do two things, okay? First, I want to explain what the protocols are. To the best of my ability, I want to do that. I still have a lot to learn about this, but I do think it's fair to get a basic level of what the protocols are and why I'm even making this video. Then I want to spend a little bit of time going over what I mean by the conspiratorial worldview, because the protocols would not be alive today if it weren't for the conspiratorial worldview. So first, let's get into this document. What is this? What's the big deal? And why do I feel like you need to know what this is so you don't get deceived? The Protocols was first published in 1903, okay? And it claims to be a secret written record of meetings supposedly held by a group called Learned Elders of Zion, the Learned Elders of Zion, okay? The meeting notes are fake, okay? These meetings never took place. And the purported leaders, right? The so-called Elders of Zion never existed. What this is, it's a book used to promote propaganda of the hatred of Jews. Why? Because the protocols contain insane conspiracy theories about alleged global Jewish power. This book is what Adolf Hitler used to confirm the conspiracy he already believed that the Jews were the bad guys. Like, it helped cause the Holocaust. What this teaches is that the Jews are somehow conspiring, causing all the world's problems because they want world domination, okay? It's like the story I told in the beginning. If you can think of a problem in the world, blame the Jews. I'm not kidding. The wars, pornography, communism, starving children, the occult, the murder of Charlie Kirk. You falling and tripping on your own 2 feet this morning. Blame the Jews. Now, I've read some of this, and each chapter claims to document the elders' supposed secret plans to control the world's politics, the economy, banks, like financial markets, the media, like literally anything, education, all these other parts of society in order to benefit the Jews, okay? The Jews are going to destroy all religions, including Christianity. The Jews are the ones who are profiting from these wars. So of course, they're the reason why the wars start too, right? So it has been said to be the most widespread anti-Semitic publication ever in modern times. So people take this book seriously. People actually believe that this happened. And what people don't realize is where this actually came from. There is no group of Jews who got together and planned world domination. And it's very easy to historically trace where the protocols came from. It was a fake, it was a forgery. And it was written by Russians with no ties to Judaism at all. The source material used to compose the original version is well known and well documented. Like, you could look this up right now. You can see from decades ago how many times this has actually been debunked, like over and over and over again. Every generation, this has been thoroughly, historically, academically, legally, exhaustingly, embarrassingly debunked. But people still believe it. Probably the simplest book I've ever read on the protocols is called The Plot by Will Eisner. It was recommended by my friend Will Spencer. It's like a graphic novel. It's a timeline, a history of the protocols. Some of it is clunky, I'm not going to lie, but I'm a bonehead. And if I could follow it, you can follow it. But with permission, here's what I'm going to do. I reached out to a few people that know a little bit about this, and I'm going to read this message that's really more like an article, and it breaks down where the protocols came from, okay? And it definitely didn't come from a group of Jewish secret meetings. It came from the Russians, okay? It was propaganda from the beginning. And literally, again, anybody can look this up and find out this information. None of this is secret or private. But we're going to get into later, at the end of this video, why people reject that evidence when I get into the conspiratorial worldview. So I'm going to read this whole thing to you. It's lengthy, but hang with me, okay? The story of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion starts before the document itself ever existed. For centuries, Anti-Semitic conspiracy theories had already been circulating in Europe. Jewish people had been falsely blamed for spreading disease, manipulating money, stirring up wars, and secretly undermining society. So by the time the protocols showed up, the audience had already been trained to look for a hidden Jewish enemy. Like, I remember learning about this in history class, in high school, in college. And I just wish I paid more attention because I thought it was just done, right? Like, oh, that's in the past. That can't happen again. No, it can happen again. The Protocols comes along in 1903 and says basically, hey, here's a document proving all of that. But the origins of the Protocols itself started in 1860s when two works appeared that would later become paramount to the creation of the Protocols. One was Maurice Joly's, I think that's how you say his last name, Joly, Maurice Joly's Dialogue in Hell between Machiavelli and Montenesquieu. So let me try that again. Dialogue in Hell between Machiavelli and Montenesquieu. Nailed it. Published in 1864. It was not about Jews. It was a criticism of Napoleon III and authoritarian power. Joly was attacking the way a ruler could manipulate the press, weaken the people, control institutions, and build a dictatorship while pretending to serve the public at the same time. But there was a problem here. Years later, very large parts of that book would be stolen almost word for word and placed into the mouths of imaginary Jewish conspirators. This is very, very easy to verify. You can go back and compare them side by side and see that this is exactly the case. A few years later, we come to 1868, and another piece of that puzzle appeared. Hermann Goetschke published a novel called Biarritz, which included a fictional scene of Jewish leaders meeting secretly in a cemetery in Prague. This fictional scene helped feed the image of shadowy Jewish leaders gathering in secret to plan world events. Again, this was fiction. So by the late 19th century, the raw materials were there. Old anti-Semitic myths, a stolen political satire about tyranny, and a fictional scene about secret Jewish meetings. Then, sometime around the turn of the 20th century, those pieces appear to have been pulled together by propagandists working in the anti-Semitic world of Imperial Russia. Now, he says here in Will Eisner's telling, the plot that I told you about before, that little graphic novel book, the key figure was Matevy Goldavinsky, a Russian-French writer associated with political propaganda who took passages from Maurice Joly's satire, changed the target audience, folded in other anti-Semitic legends, and refashioned the whole thing into what looked like a leaked document. The document claimed to be the secret minutes of a meeting held by the so-called Elders of Zion, Jewish leaders. These elders supposedly laid out a plan to control governments, banks, newspapers, education, wars, revolutions, and religion. In other words, it didn't merely accuse Jews of just plotting against the world, but supposedly showed them saying it in their own words. This was proof of the conspiracies. But here he says, let me be clear. These elders did not exist. The meetings never happened. The whole thing was fake. But the forgery, really what it did was present itself as if it were proof that Jews were plotting to control the governments, the banks, the newspapers, all these other elements, and there was actual proof for it now. That was the goal. But why do this? This was what I struggled with for a long time when I was looking into this. And I realized it's because the goal was to manufacture a weapon, a document that could make people believe that reform, their revolution, that capitalism, communism, any sort of social change, their cultural anxiety, anything that could be attributed to those things were all connected to one hidden Jewish plan. It was made to look like a leak, but it was really propaganda to make Jews the scapegoats, and it worked, and it's still working. Eventually, this material resurfaced in Russia. In 1903, Pavel Khrushchev, an anti-Semitic newspaper publisher in St. Petersburg, which, by the way, it's very well documented that he hated Jews, printed the first known version of the Protocols in his newspaper, Zamnia, or The Banner. Khrushchev was not some objective journalist who stumbled across a mysterious document. He was already known for spreading hatred against Jews. And earlier that same year, that agitation against the Jews helped fuel the Kishinev pogrom, which he says a pogrom is when a mob attacks a Jewish community, often with the approval or neglect of the government. So this Kishinev pogrom is where Jewish families were attacked and killed. So when the protocols appeared in his paper, it landed exactly where it was meant to land, among people already primed to believe the worst. Then in 1905, I told you guys this was long, hang with me here. Then in 1905, the forgery got another major push when Sergei Nilus, a Russian mystic and anti-Semite, included it in a book about the Antichrist. That gave the lie a more apocalyptic flavor. Now, it was not just a political conspiracy, it was portrayed as something spiritual, as a spiritual war, with Jews cast as agents of satanic destruction. That made the document even more powerful to people who already saw history through fear, prophecy, and enemies hiding in the shadows. After the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, the protocols spread even faster. Russia had exploded into revolution. Europe was terrified of communism. We're getting up to 1940s, World War II. Keep that in mind. Okay, Europe was terrified of communism, and people wanted a simple explanation for a world that felt like it was falling apart. The protocols gave them one: blame the Jews. It gave a simple explanation for a complicated world. If there was a war, blame the Jews. If there was economic instability, blame the Jews. If there was a revolution, blame the Jews. If culture changed, blame the Jews. Looking back now, I personally see that this document functioned like a conspiracy template. It was ready to be adapted to whatever crisis people were already afraid of, and the lie adapted perfectly. It could be used to say that Jews controlled everything, from capitalism, yet also communism. If there was political chaos or revolutions, problems with money, the economy, it was all controlled by the Jews. It did not matter if it was true. It only needed to be emotionally useful, and it really was, and it still is. Moving on to the 1920s, the document had traveled across borders and languages. It showed up in Germany, France, Britain, the US, the Middle East, and beyond. Henry Ford even helped spread similar ideas through the International Jew, which gave this conspiracy framework, which I'm calling the conspiracy worldview. He calls it framework. It gave the conspiracy framework an even wider audience. Then came Hitler and the Nazis. Hitler came into politics after World War I, when Germany was humiliated, economically unstable, and they were very, very angry about the events of World War I. A lot of Germans were looking for someone to blame. The protocols gave them a simple answer. Behind it all, it was the Jews. Germany's World War I defeat was one hidden Jewish plot, and it fit perfectly with Hitler's worldview. He even mentions the protocols in Mein Kampf, and he treats them as if they reveal the nature, the aims of the Jews. They're the bad guys. But the important thing is that Hitler did not need the document to be historically reliable. He believed the conspiracy already. The thing is that the protocols functioned as supposed confirmation. It gave him language and evidence for something he already wanted to preach and teach people. And what I found particularly troubling about this when I stumbled upon it is that leading Nazis knew about this, or at least strongly suspected that it was not even true. It was not factual. This was no matter to them. That is propaganda brain in one sentence. It basically means that the facts don't matter if the lie serves the cause. Pause here for a second. I actually see this as tabloid mentality as well. There was a saying, 90s kids might know this if you've watched like 90s documentaries about tabloids and how they functioned, but there was like a phrase that they used to say that don't let facts get in the way of a good story. Like it didn't matter what actually happened. They wanted to get to the juicy stuff so that they could feed the tabloid machine. Tell me if we don't see that online today. I agree with him here. Facts don't matter if the lie serves the cause. All right, so let's keep going here. Practically speaking, I think that there's a strong case to make that the Nazis used the protocols in a few ways. Alfred Rosenberg, one of the major Nazi ideologues, wrote a commentary on the protocols in 1923 that reinforced the Nazi anti-Jewish ideology. What the Nazi Party did is they secured the copyright to a German edition in 1929, and by 1938, or about, the party publishing house had issued 22 printings of it. Its themes also appeared constantly in Nazi propaganda. Jews controlled the press. Jews control finance. Jews spread communism. Jews want war. Jews corrupt culture. Jews are secretly coordinating against Germany. Whatever it was, you could fill in the blank. And yet, the thing is that very early on, the whole thing was exposed as a forgery, as a fraud. In 1921, the Times of London showed that large portions of the protocols had been plagiarized from Maurice Joly's book. And again, you guys can go look at this. I've looked at this. You can see this. And that the secret Jewish plan was in large part stolen from a French critique of Napoleon III. Journalists, governments, historians, they would go on and on to expose it again and again. Again, this is very historically documented. So the origin of the protocols is the story of a lie being built first from old prejudice, then from old stolen texts, then from political fear, then from propaganda, and finally from generations of people willing to treat a known forgery like secret, hidden, forbidden knowledge. The evidence against the protocols is and was overwhelming, and yet this document still survives. I personally have seen this document on college campuses. In fact, that is when I was first introduced to it. I've seen it in college classrooms, and now it is spread on the internet in the mouths of political and spiritual commentators. And unfortunately, many of them claim to be Christians. And then he goes on to share other things in his experience, but that I thought was a very good just outline of the protocols, where they came from, and how and why we still are seeing this come up today. Here's another thing I want to read to you guys, definitely not as long as what I just read to you, but I interviewed my friend Will Spencer not too long ago. He's been on my channel twice. He's very educated in this area, and he wrote an article a few years ago that I will leave in the description for you to read. But he wrote this about a year ago, I believe it was in 2025, about how these ideas got into culture. And it really started with the manosphere, the red pill movement, right? 4chan, which he was a part of on some level. So here's what he says about it in this article. This is just part of it. As an underfathered man seeking answers for myself, I too found the manosphere, the red pill, and 4chan. Here's how I'd summarize what they, in those spaces, they had to say about how we got here. Please note, this is their narrative, not mine. Make sure you're sitting down. The Jews who killed Christ didn't accept defeat at his resurrection. They spent centuries plotting to overthrow his reign and establish a global seat of power in Jerusalem. This scheme surfaced in a pseudo-historical 19th century document called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Adolf Hitler read the protocols and became the sole Christian world leader brave enough to challenge the Jews, which he determined to do for the good of the superior Aryan race. Jewish capitalist forces in the West, led by Roosevelt and Churchill, and Jewish Bolshevik forces in the East, led by Stalin, then conspired to destroy Hitler and the defiant National Socialists of Germany. In 1945, the Allies were victorious. Shortly after, the Holocaust was fabricated. This ersatz atrocity served as the keystone for the never again ethos of the post-war consensus. Horrific tales of mass murder in the death camps stabbed like a knife into the heart of the West. Movies and TV shows slandered masculine Christian patriarchy as the foundations of fascism and genocide. In the moral vacuum left behind after patriarchy's demise, Jewish liberal progressive values ascended without resistance. The Jews chose feminism as the chief instrument to mobilize those values. Playing on the feminine sympathy for the disadvantaged, a weaponized empathy campaign began in the 1960s to enlist marginalized populations in the democratic process. Homosexuals who were deviant, promiscuous single women, unassimilated migrants, violent inner city minorities. Led in secret by the Jews, these groups are now foot soldiers in a war of cultural genocide against straight white Christian men and families. According to the plain plan laid out in the protocols, the Jews used these groups to suppress white birth rates through abortion and birth control, flood cities with minorities, mass-produce pornography, normalize homosexual lifestyle, and more. All of these have led to the moral and civilizational decline of the West, paving the way for a global socialist new world order. So this has been around for a long time. On the internet, it's grown in popularity. I'm discovering that they wouldn't say that they're Holocaust deniers. They would probably say that they're Holocaust revisionists, where, oh, the Holocaust didn't happen the way you think it did. No. Actually, it was exaggerated. Whatever the case may be, that's the argument, that's the position that they're making, that the Jews exaggerated it. The reason why they would say that the Jews exaggerated the Holocaust is because if that actually happened, then that gives the Jews more power. Oh, the poor Jews, let's feel bad for them kind of mindset, right? Now, I still have a lot to learn about this myself. But what I'm finding quite disturbing about the protocols in particular is that the more I'm researching this, the more I'm realizing how the conspiracy worldview in general goes back to the protocols, which brings me to the next part of this video, the conspiratorial worldview. Now, I want to be very careful and mindful here. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. So I'm going to define my terms very specifically, at least as best as I can. I've tried to categorize this, okay? Because I'm finding you can't overgeneralize with certain claims, okay? So there are three types that I'm going to use here, three types of conspiracies. There are conspiracies, conspiracy facts, and conspiracy theories. Because there's, in my view, a very big difference between these three and where the average person might fall. First, let me explain conspiracies. A conspiracy is when two or more people secretly coordinate to do something deceptive, right? They're doing something immoral, illegal, it's hurting other people, whatever it is, right? Conspiracies really do happen. Like, of course they happen. Scripture itself is even full of them, right? People plot, they lie, they cover their tracks, they do all kinds of immoral things to protect their power. They scheme against others. So the question is not whether conspiracies exist. Of course they do. The question is, how do we even know they exist to begin with? How do we even prove that they even happened? This is where I would place conspiracies, okay? If there's a conspiracy that's going to happen, I would then place it into two different categories: conspiracy facts or conspiracy theories. So first, there are conspiracy facts, what I'm going to call conspiracy facts. And this is basically, in my view, how we even know a conspiracy even took place, because we can verify it through evidence and facts. A great example is Watergate, right? The tobacco industry cover-up, right? Remember when cigarettes were good for you? And they knew it wasn't? Why do we know that? The Enron scandal, that was another one. And then even in the crime world, right? Detectives uncover conspiracy facts all the time. If somebody's conspiring to murder somebody else, they can actually look at evidence and draw the line back to know, oh, who was in on it and what happened. So everybody can suspect a conspiracy, right? But then it moves into this different category of conspiracy fact when that conspiracy becomes knowable. It has evidence. There are witnesses, there are records, there's documents, there's consequences, public verification. There are ways to know what actually happened, and everybody can see it. There has to be a way that we as the people can publicly verify what we're seeing. Like, it goes, in other words, it goes from just being suspicious about something into actual knowledge, like actual reality that you can know. Now, this is just my opinion, but I see, okay, conspiracy facts, like in history, if we're looking back at things that happened, right? They tend to be shocking, okay, but not sensational. They're shocking because they expose real corruption, actual deception that took place, abuses that took place, but they're not sensational in like the conspiracy theory sense, because they evidentially become concrete because of evidence, right? You can have names, you can have dates, you know exactly what happened, when it happened, how it happened, why they did it, and then there's public accountability, right? Like, nobody's talking about the Volkswagen emission scandal anymore. Do you know what I mean? Do you even know what that is? I remember the Volkswagen emission scandal, but I didn't really think about it until I had to make this video. The reason why is because it's not sensational. Like, there's not aliens behind the scenes or something. I don't know. Maybe because there's no Jews in Volkswagen. But here's the other thing about it. You can take a conspiracy fact like MK Ultra. Okay, that actually happened, and it was very unethical. But then you just don't let that go. It's like, no, we can work with this. We can really make something sensational from this. And then what modern pop conspiracy culture does is they build an entire mythology on it, right? The fact that the CIA really did conduct unethical mind control experiments on people, right, does not then equal every celebrity breakdown or mass shooting or strange public behavior, Britney Spears, right, or cultural trend is secretly MK Ultra. Maybe people are just sinners. Maybe people just take drugs. Maybe people do unethical things and do dumb things. That doesn't mean that they're all a part of this program that happened. And then you can't even prove it when the claim is made. But I digress. I'm getting ahead of myself. I understand, okay? I get it. I understand people being suspicious of things that are going down. But suspicion is not the same thing as discernment, okay? Suspicion can ask good questions, but it cannot become this final authority. Okay, I trust, in other words, I trust that truth will always win. It will always come out. But conspiracy theories actually never know the truth, which brings me to conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories differ from conspiracy facts because conspiracy theories remain theories. They never move into the category of conspiracy fact. Okay, but let me give a caveat here, okay? I understand people having theories about what might be going on in the world. Totally. I mean, maybe there's something going on and you're like, I need to know more about this. But your goal is always to get down to the bottom of what's actually true. And then you will actually accept that as true once you've discerned and assessed with evidence, with facts, okay? So in that way, having a theory is not really what I'm talking about here, because I think that a lot of people know that truth can be known based on what evidence they're given, right? But in this context, I'm using conspiracy theory to describe claims that don't mature into knowledge because the theory is structured in such a way that no evidence can actually correct it. In fact, I think that there's a better name for what I'm really trying to get across here besides conspiracy theories, but rather conspiracy myths. A lot of people who follow conspiracy theories are actually following conspiracy myths. These are conspiracies that have actually been shown to be false. And yet, within the conspiracy worldview, right? It's the way they view the world. They keep it alive anyway. By continuing to call it a theory, people keep it like suspended in possibility, as if the truth is still undecided about it, all right? If it can be tested, if it can be verified, or falsified, or even eventually proven, I would place it in a different category. But modern conspiracy theories operate very differently from what I'm saying. As they operate as a worldview where suspicion becomes the highest authority. And it's from that perspective that they see the world. This is a worldview, a mindset, that from what I've seen, it shoots an arrow and then draws a circle around the arrow. The simplest way that I can put it, in my opinion, is that it's an addiction to suspicion. At the core of this worldview, of the conspiracy worldview, is a profound sense of mistrust, of paranoia, of suspicion. And the fruit that I have seen from this worldview and this mindset has deeply grieved me. Many people in the conspiracy theory worldview are not truth seekers. They're doubt seekers, right? This worldview reshapes how a person sees everything. Politics, their friends, war, medicine, literally anything. Elections, celebrities, and even how they see other Christians. Ultimately, from what I've witnessed, in my opinion, the epistemology, which is the way they view truth, right, of a pretty deep conspiracy theorist worldview, is postmodern in its foundation. You can't prove or disprove it. Any evidence given against the claim is used as evidence for it. So, for example, say they believe a document claiming that Jews had a secret plan for world domination. If you show them evidence, which exists, mountains of it exist, if you show them evidence that that document was forged, they would say, of course they want you to believe it was forged. That's exactly what the people in power want you to believe, you dummy. If historians debunk it, that just means that the historians are in on it, or they've been compromised, or maybe they just don't know any better. If journalists expose it, it means that the media is just trying to cover it up because guess who controls the media, right? If scholars explain where it came from, that means academia is part of the conspiracy because guess who controls the academia? So the claim becomes unfalsifiable. There is no evidence that can correct it because every correction is reinterpreted as confirmation for it. And at that point, we're dealing with a belief system that denies reality. Truth can't actually be known. In that way, then there really is no truth that you can know about any conspiracy because the facts within that world are not verifiable. It's really interesting to me because the epistemology of the conspiracy theory, the conspiracy myth worldview, right? It reminds me a lot of the progressive Christian. They have the truth, but really, it can't really be known. And in my opinion, this is where conspiracy thinking can become cultish. Straight up. Think about it, okay? A personality becomes the gatekeeper of the secret knowledge, hidden from you by the elites, constantly hinting at hidden truths, but never actually giving answers that can be tested. And their audience becomes dependent on them, on that personality. But because the mystery is endlessly prolonged, it really does make it seem like there's a simple answer for all the things that are going on. It really does remind me of tabloid psychology. It's an addiction, and the fruit is rotten. It's not good. What I've witnessed from this phenomenon, it grieves me because I've just seen people close to me become shells of themselves. I remember a long time ago watching the movie A Beautiful Mind. It's a great movie, actually. It's very good. But I'll never forget how insistent the main character was that what he was seeing was real, but it was a delusion the whole time. And the people around him were trying to help him to see the truth, the reality. But to him, those people, they were the enemy. So here's the ultimate dividing line of it, okay? Can this claim be tested? Can it be corrected? Can it be verified? Can it be falsified? And if it can be, and that evidence is shown to you, what do you do with it? Distrust can become its own false religion. It can be an idol. It can be like this fake, this counterfeit omniscience, okay? They think they're seeing the hidden pattern behind everything, but they're really trapped, okay? They're trapped in a belief system that can't be corrected by facts or reality. And this worldview does not produce Christian fruit. It is the new mind virus. It does not produce peace. It does not produce wisdom, courage, repentance, joy. No, it steals those things from you. From what I have seen, the fruit from this worldview produces paranoia, rage, anger, endless decoding, and most of all, fear. I think that's what really grabs me about this whole thing, okay? Is that this does not free you. It ultimately offers a worldview filled with fear. It's designed to make you afraid of everything. And this is the opposite of biblical discernment. That's the biggest trap, in my opinion, of this whole thing. The one that's deceived thinks that they are the smartest person in the room. They see all the secrets. They see through all the lies, but they, ironically, are the ones who are believing and spreading lies. That's what's so difficult about this, is they think that they're loving truth. But then when you give them truth, they deny it. I believe, in my opinion, that this is why I get the harshest pushback when I cover anything with conspiracy. And for a while, that actually confused me, but now I think I understand it a little bit better now. It's because this isn't like a hobby for people, right? This is a worldview. This is a religion. And when you mess with somebody's false worldview, it really rattles the cages that they are trapped in. So I hope I made those categories clear. I hope that made sense, because I don't want to overgeneralize and place everybody just in one arena that they don't fit in. But that's my best effort at describing this phenomenon and putting these views in, I believe, to be fair categories. And guess which category of conspiracy the protocols fit in? It's 1000% conspiracy myth. I mean, guys, we're talking about a document whose fruit was used to convince people that the Holocaust was a good thing because the Jews were the bad guys. Okay, and what concerns me is not merely that the protocols of the learned elders of Zion exists. Okay, that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is how many people still believe it. Even if they don't know where it came from, a lot of people believe what's in that document. This is a brand new arena for me as far as the history of modern conspiracy theories goes, but once you start looking into it, there are breadcrumbs everywhere that lead back to the protocols. Some of the most influential conspiracy books of the last few decades have quoted directly from it. They repeated its framework, repeated the claims, and sometimes they do that without making the connections obvious. So like the language changes, okay? So instead of saying the Jews, for example, they might say the Illuminati, right? The globalists, the elites, or the one I've heard a lot is the deep state, right? Well, who's they? Who is that, right? The core of that theory stays the same though, right? It's a hidden group of powerful people who is secretly controlling world events. They're manipulating the governments. They're using the media, the money in the world, the finances, right? They enslave the masses, and they are hiding the truth from ordinary people, right? So people may not even know the name, the protocols by name, but they have absolutely absorbed its worldview. And that's what I'm submitting here, is that the modern conspiracy theory worldview ultimately gets its framework from the protocols of the learned elders of Zion.
Even if people don't know that this is what they're following, it is in fact what they're following.
So I hope that this was helpful for you guys. It's always risky doing videos like this because I know there's a lot at stake there. But check out the description for more information. If you want to know more about this topic in general, my friend Will Spencer has recommended Black Sun by Nicholas Goodrick Clark. It really goes into a lot of this very deeply. And then The Plot by Will Eisner, I mentioned that before. And speaking of my friend Will Spencer, his channel is probably one of the only channels I know who is really very clearly talking about this stuff in a Christian biblical worldview. And also my friend Kevin Briggins from Center for Biblical Unity. He's also a great resource on this. I want to end this video with this Bible verse. This is Isaiah 8, verses 11 through 13. This is what the Lord says to me with his strong hand upon me, warning me not to follow the way of this people. Do not call conspiracy everything this people calls a conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear, and do not dread it. The Lord Almighty is the one you are to regard as holy. He is the one you are to fear. He is the one you are to dread.